So what I'm doing from now on is, instead of sending individual links to the demos without audio, I'm going to record the class and post it on my YouTube channel through SBCC. And then a couple, after class, I'll send you the link to that. Please don't rely on that as a substitute for coming to class. I'd really like you to still come, but that's just for your convenience if you want to watch it again later, to get more detailed information. For those of you jumping on late, just wanted to mention that summer school, there's going to be an emphasis on landscape painting and painting outside if you choose. And I have a really great, comfortable setup that I use for doing that, and I'll teach you. But basically, I use a very low, one of those low beach chairs, and then I just put my palette right on the ground next to me, and I have my board with my paper that goes right across the armrests, and it's very comfortable. It works very, very well for outdoor painting. So is anyone having problems registering for summer school classes?
Me.
Who said me? Patricia. I forwarded your email to Ken because I'm not really sure what to tell you about that.
Sure.
There have been, I've probably gotten maybe 6, which is actually less than I was worried it was going to be more. I've had about 6 people unable to register. So, the system just, I don't know if there's issues with it, but I'm not really sure how to guide you on that. So hopefully you can get some help.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
So any questions about any of that yet so far? How many of you are going to take summer school, splashing watercolor? Okay, great. Super. Awesome. And did you I haven't checked my roster yet. Are you all registered? Okay, if you haven't, you may want to kind of do that soon. They capped it high, but I think it's filling pretty fast because there's limited Zoom classes. Okay, so I'm going to get right into my demo video. And this technique, let me get it up first because I can't really talk and do this at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. I think it's this one. Yeah. Okay. So feel free to unmute yourselves if you have any questions on this. So this is a full sheet of paper. And for this technique, I recommend that you use the back side of the paper, which has more tooth and more texture. You'll be able to just get a lot more richness with your layers. And this it's a wet on wet technique, but it's actually more like a damp technique. So what I'm doing is I have my largest watercolor brush and I'm going to wet the whole surface with my brush. And I'm using a lot of water, getting really good coverage over the whole thing. And if you can spare a full sheet on this, I highly recommend that you work large for this. It's super freeing and super fun. And this, I'm doing an abstract, and I'm encouraging you to do an abstract where you're not attached to trying to make something look real, so that you can be more freed up to experiment. And we'll be using this technique for the oceans, the seascape, ocean painting. that I'm going to be taking you through this summer. It really lends itself very well to that. So now, after you've got your water all laid out, I've got a sponge and I'm just evenly stroking it to soak up the extra water to make it even. You don't want any water sitting on the surface of the paper. So the sponge is kind of absorbing all the excess water up. And I got a little dirt on the paper from the sponge, but not to worry, I'll just use kind of a darker paint on that. So this is a painting using complementary colors. The last week's assignment, you know, where the colors were all merging, you couldn't use complementary colors because it would create mud. But with this technique, even though it's kind of a wet on wet, the colors are going to remain somewhat distinct so that you can use complementary colors. So I'm going with a blue, a purple, blue, violet blend. So I mixed up some, it was a blue and opera to make kind of a reddish purple. And I'm just laying down a couple of broad areas of color. Now here I am doing the edge of it with the darker blue. So you can see I'm just kind of stroking it down, and you can see how the wet paper is just absorbing it really nicely. I'm putting that dark edge along the reddish purple. So I'm getting a couple of different tones of my purple. Then I'm mixing up another purple over here. And this one, I think that was some kind of a lavender tube. These are all tube watercolors so far that I'm using. So this is more of a pinky purple that I'm blocking in down here. So you want some kind of large swaths of color laid down. Try to keep it fairly bold at this point. I kind of decided to connect these two purples along the bottom there. But you can see there's a range of different colors of purple. Now I'm going to balance out the composition by bringing a swath of color to the upper left to kind of balance out. And I'm working with a kind of a diagonal composition here. My concept behind this painting is kind of an internal experience of spiritual light or inner light. And, you know, some of these techniques that I'm showing this week and last week are ones to tap into for the last week's project, which is the inner landscape, where you're painting your inner sensations and feelings. I decided I needed some gold. I'm looking for my metallic iridescent watercolor, but I actually didn't have any. I'm kind of digging around in my thing there. I didn't have any, so I decided to get my, I have a Golden brand liquid acrylic, which is an iridescent gold. So I got that out. So here it is right here. You can mix acrylics, and especially fluid acrylics are a great addition, but I wanted that iridescent gold because actually, after all, I'm working with my inner light. So that spiritual light, this is kind of like a crown chakra painting for me. Any of those of you who are familiar with the chakra system. So now, you know, the paper's still wet. So I'm laying in my gold, and this is all the base layer. I'm just kind of mapping out my colored areas and shapes. And I'm painting up next to the purple. And now I'm using a bit of a smaller brush, and it's actually a flat brush, which I don't use very often, but I'm working a little bit more with these kind of straight edged shapes. So I'm doing that. And you just add water to your acrylic. And I'm going along the edges. You can see with the gold, I'm kind of going along the edges of the purple. I have my headphones on to my music. Gotta play the music, but if I play it on the computer, then you can hear it on this video, so I have to wear my headphones. So I decided that I needed to add some yellow to my gold to kind of make it a little more vibrant, so I'm mixing it in. And you basically have all the time in the world to keep mixing your colors in because this paper is still damp. It soaked when I put all that water in with the brush, it just soaked it right up. So it's in the paper, but yet it's not sitting on the surface. So I still am able to kind of retain these separate shapes. Lots of water, lots of color, just going in and adding it in and kind of blending. So this is the base layer that I'm putting in right now. And I'm adding in some more gold. More water at the top. So you can see there's kind of a blend up there where it gets lighter to darker. I want it to kind of lighten up and open up at the top. And I dropped, you can see there's a drip of gold iridescent that splattered onto the purple. And I'm going to use that later on as a jumping off point to add more of that down there. So take note of that. You make your mistakes kind of work for you. So now I'm going to start layering on, and this is still wet, so it's still accepting the color. And I'm getting some kind of brush strokes happening in here. Now using the flat brush again, still. So here I'm dripping in some of that gold down there to get some texture to kind of play off of that drip of gold and make it kind of work for me. And, so the drips have I'm putting in some kind of curvy strokes along the edge down there where the gold is meeting the purple. The paint, the drips, they have their own little shapes, but they're still kind of merging because the paper's still wet. Now I'm going to start layering. I'm going to get some darker darks, putting just the blue along that edge. I want to kind of strengthen that dark edge, but you can see it's still blending because it's still wet. You just keep building up your layers here. So I'm kind of starting to heighten and intensify the colors. It's like a gradual building up, but you leave some of the subtle color showing through, so there's kind of a depth and a richness to it. I had some of that opera kind of stuck on my brush, and I just kind of tried to work it into the painting. Sometimes you'll get a streak of the pigment. I'm adding some water to get some texture up there. And I ended up not really liking that area. So you'll see later on, I'm going to put some brusho in there. You know, anytime when you're painting, if you don't like an area, that's your cue to change it. And you can see I'm putting some dark color up there against that yellow to get a really nice strong contrast, but it's still bleeding together. It's not like, there's no hard edges here. It's all soft. It's a very soft painting, even though there's the sharp contrast. And I left a little bit of white in that center area, you can see. Here I am blotting some of that with a paper towel. It got a little too much. So you blot it, adding some water. Okay, now I've got my salt out. I'm going to texturize some areas. So I'm sprinkling some kosher salt. You can see the crystals starting to form. And I'm doing it in a few different areas throughout the painting, so there's kind of a flow. And then I think no, I'm not doing the brush show yet. I'm going to add some more gold. You see how wet that is still? It's still taking the gold paint, flowing it a little bit into the purple area. And the more dry it is like this, the more you can blend your opposite colors without it turning muddy. So I'm wanting to get kind of a little bit more paint strokes and some markings on this. Strengthening that gold color a little bit. Just building it up, building it up. Yeah, this is a really fun way to paint landscapes or seascapes. You know, I take a moment to kind of look at it and feel it and see what else wants to be done. I'm taking a little bit of the opera and putting some brush strokes in to get a little bit of interest in those shapes. And they look like kind of hard edges when I put them on, but you can see how they're softening because it's still damp. All this time later, it's still wet. And I'm deciding to repeat that opera over in another part of the painting. And I'm using a little square brush for this, down in that little crevice where the colors meet. And then in a third area down here, a little bit of that opera. Now I have the back side of the brush. This is a great technique. I'm scratching into some of the areas. This is a really good technique to use for depicting like vegetation in a landscape, or if you want to put in like a horizon line in the ocean where the, you know, where the island is or something like that. So I'm just kind of randomly putting in some scratch marks with the end of my paintbrush. A little more gold splattering here. and a little bit in the upper area. I like to repeat, if I do something in one spot, I like to repeat it somewhere else to kind of help keep the eye moving around. Now I've got my brush show. So I used black. I've never used black before, but I wanted to deepen some areas, and I didn't like that spot I just did, so I put some over there. I'm trying to deepen my darks. So I put it in a few different spots, and you'll see that the brush show had different effects depending on how wet the paper was. So in the first area, it was pretty wet and it merged a lot. That area down on the lower right, it didn't really merge much at all, but it did a little bit. And then the other interesting thing is that the brush show is made up of different colored pigments. So the first one I put in on the far left had black with some like rusty red pigment. And then the one in the upper middle had a little bit of turquoise mixed in with it. And it actually sprinkled into the yellow, which I hadn't intended, but it's not a problem. But once that turquoise color was up there, I realized I needed to get a little bit more of that turquoise onto the painting. So it doesn't look like I'm doing it right now, but I actually happened to have some of that turquoise paint right in my palette, which often goes that way for me. I often have exactly what I need. So I'm going to add some, but here I'm going in. So the paper's getting more dry now, and the brush strokes are a little more defined. I'm kind of accenting those scrape marks that I did with the end of my brush. I'm kind of putting some dark bluish purple around those to bring them out because I'm wanting to get that variety. You know, as you do this process or any painting process, I'm just asking myself, what's the one next step? What's the one next color? What's the one next stroke that wants to go on the page? And you kind of just feel your way around. And you look at it and you find an area that you don't like or doesn't feel complete. And that's where you go. You're like, okay, what can I do here to bring this to a place where I like it? Putting in a little more opera up here. All along that edge. And you know, now you can really see that turquoise coming out. It didn't really catch my eye right away, but then as it dispersed, you know, that turquoise kind of stands out because it's the only one of its kind. And so just going to add some turquoise and then we're almost done here. Anybody have any questions about this so far? You're muted, Marcy. I'm sprinkling some more salt on right now. Oh, you were just unmuted and then you muted yourself again.
Okay. Oh,
yeah, now I can hear you.
Now you can hear me. Oh, you said you sprinkled some black on.
The brush show. The brush show. I'll show you when the video's done. I've showed it in class before. It's a product. I'll show it.
Okay. It was probably before I was in class.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm doing the turquoise. Just getting some water mixed into that. And I'm just bringing some turquoise into other parts of the paint.
I have a couple of questions, of course.
Okay.
You said opera. What is the opera?
Opera is a color. It's a hot pink. It's a really great color to add to your palette. It's that hot pink color.
Okay. And how do you know the back side of the paper? When you see that embossed
You
symbol,
want, if you can read it, that's the front side.
gotcha. And you know what's amazing is that your brushes, when you dip it in the gold and you dip it in the purple and back in the gold, that you don't get like the colors stay separate. You're not using different brushes. That's
Yeah, I swish it around in the water. And yeah,
right.
use a lot of water. You know, if you might not be using enough water.
Okay, gotcha. And if you're using acrylic, my last question, how do you clean your brushes with acrylic?
Just the same as water. As long as the paint doesn't dry out on your brush, it's not a problem.
Okay, and what about when it's in your little cups? Do you reconstitute it? You know what I mean, in your palette?
No. What you know, you have to paint it. Once it dries, you just squeeze enough out for your session. Basically.
Okay, gotcha.
You can see I used up pretty much all my gold there. What am I doing now? I think I'm doing a little more scratching. Yeah, I'm doing a little more scratching. You can see where I added the turquoise. So I brought the turquoise pretty much over to the right and down to the bottom. So there's kind of that triangle, you know, and putting a little more salt in. The painting takes the salt differently depending on how dry it is. I got some really nice effects here when I put it in at the later stages when it was a little more dry. And I'll show you the final painting when I'm done here. And I'm just, yep, I think that's it.
Do you decide on any of the shapes before you begin, or you just let the colors speak to you?
I let the colors speak to me, but I pretty much had a general idea that I was going to, let me find the painting. So here's the finished painting. You can really see the iridescent gold here. You can see the brush show, how it's sprinkled on into here. When I first started, Sarah, to answer your question, I had a general idea that I wanted this light, this kind of diagonal light coming down. And I knew that when I first started, all I knew was that I was going to do a dark purple here and some over here, kind of. That's all I knew. And I knew I wanted this light coming down. So I just started with my first two general shapes. But you can see how, even though, and this painting didn't take very long, it's a full sheet. But you can see how building up all those layers gets all these beautiful, nuanced subtleties and rich layers and different textures. And it's kind of sensual, you know? And you could see, like here, the different drying times of how the paint is reacting with the paper. Here's the brush show effect. So here's one effect, and here's another effect, and then here's the turquoise one. So they're all kind of a little different. Here's the drips down here, which started with this little accident, led to this whole little passage here. And then I wanted you to note, isn't this a beautiful salt effect? This is a really good way to get like sparkles of light on the ocean when you're doing your seascape. So yeah, so I'm going to stop the share and come back to you and see if you have any questions or comments or what you thought about this. Lindsay?
Okay, so in abstract art, when you go and paint vertically, are you committed to vertical, or do you think,
No.
well, okay, so isn't that a bit just the concept of starting your brain to paint something in a certain way, which is thoughtful, and then later go, oh, well, you know, I was only kidding, I'm going to turn it 45 degrees because the balance is different. How does that feel as an artist to
I
not
did that just last week. So I'm teaching abstract painting this session, and I did that just last week with my demo painting. I liked it better on its side. That's not about changing your mind. It's about following the guidance of the art itself and allowing it to speak to you, and it telling you, I want to be on my side. I'm happier this way. You just follow that, you just listen to the painting. I did the painting. I hung out with it for a while. I had it right over here. I did some yoga and kind of was looking at it. And it was like, oh, it wants to, and I tried it in a few different directions, but I put it on its side and did some more yoga, and that's where it was happiest. So, it's a dialogue with you and your painting, especially when you get more into these more intuitive, interpretive kind of paintings. It's really a dialogue between you and the art, and the process kind of becomes the product,
Okay.
Any other questions about that? Okay. So hopefully
I
you've
do
learned.
have a question.
Oh,
I have a question. Can
yes,
you hear
Heidi?
Okay, I have a pad of paper that it's actually quite small, but it's what I happen to have at the house because I was ready to buy some big sheets, but then everything went haywire. So with this pad, there's one side that has some texture, and there's one side that, oh my gosh, I've never seen watercolor paper that is so smooth. I'm thinking that's the back side, but then you just said that it's not. So
Well, with watercolor paper, so maybe don't think about the front side and the back side. Think about the smooth side and the rough
smooth side and texture side. Okay.
Right. So the smooth side is preferable when you're wanting a lot of detail and control and, really defined, contained, controlled work.
Okay.
And the textured side is more for layering and more generalized, more diffuse kind of, painting like that.
Okay. That's interesting. I had thought that this was one-sided. I thought there's only a textured side, and this other side, this is always going to be the back.
No, some artists prefer to paint on the back side,
Okay, so
It's
I'll
just-
try and see what it looks like. I mean,
I would try both. Try both, and then you can see the qualities that
What
they
a-
have and the effects that you can get with the different sides of the paper.
Thanks.
Okay, so hopefully you guys will play around and try this technique with the layering. And you can find some kind of a sponge or something to kind of soak up your extra water. Okay, any other questions before we move into critique time? Good? Okay. So let's see.
Oh, Carissa,
Yeah.
I had the same question about that black sprinkled product. I don't know.
Oh, right. I was going to show you the brush show. Yeah. So this is what it's called. I ordered it on Amazon, and it was $20, but you know what, with shipping and with tax it came to close to 30, but it's worth it. It's so it's got these 12 colors, and it comes in these little plastic containers, and it's got a plastic top. And what I recommend, don't take, the thing is that a little bit of this, it's like fairy dust. It just sprinkles on everything, and it can really get into your painting, into areas that you don't like. And even if the paper's dry, it can get on the paper and mess it up. So what I do is I take a little, I have a little push pin. And I just poke a few holes in it to make it like a salt shaker. And then you can control it better. You just kind of sprinkle it on in areas that you want. And if, you know, you might want to try to be kind of careful or even put a paper on top of your painting if you don't want it to go in that area. But it comes in these beautiful colors. And like I said, like the lemon will have a few different pigments of the yellow to make it up. So it adds a lot of richness to it. But it's
Is
a
it
fun.
only used to sprinkle, or do you actually mix it with water too?
You sprinkle it onto the wet painting, the wet paper.
Always. You never use it as a base and add water on your paint.
No, it's not meant to be used as a paint. It's just to embellish, kind of like salt, to get an effect.
Carissa, do you
Yeah.
brush it off or leave it on? Like with the salt, you said you always brush the salt off.
No, just leave it on. It will kind of soak in. It will become part of the paper. It will soak right into it. It's a pigment. It's a
Okay.
pigment, so it will go right into the watercolor paper. Okay.
Marissa, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, you can.
Yeah. Hi, Patricia.
I don't know how to get my picture up there. Is that hard to do? You know,
So,
I have my,
like right now, it looks like your camera's on, but there's nobody there.
I'm here, but I'm not much of a techie.
Okay.
It's the first time I've come to Zoom.
But we can't see you. Like if we could see you, you could hold your painting up in front of your camera.
Well, I don't have a painting to hold up, but I don't know how to make it so you can see me. There's chat, there's share screen, there's record, there's
Do you have your painting on your computer, or what kind of a device are you on right now?
Well, I downloaded Zoom the other day and I just clicked your link.
But are you on a computer or an
Yeah.
iPad or a phone?
No, I'm on a computer.
And do you have a photograph of your painting on your computer?
Well, I probably have in my files, I probably have several paintings.
Okay, so
But
if
I haven't joined you, in this class until now.
okay, so what you can do is if you can find the painting that you want to share in your file and get it kind of at the ready, then there's an option, the screen share option allows you, that's what I just used to show my painting from my computer.
Well, I did check that and I don't have to share a painting or anything, but it would be nice to be like the other people.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, I mean, it looks like your camera's on because it's not a
Yes.
solid black background, but you're not there. Are you sitting in front of your computer?
Yes, I am.
It looks like her computer is facing her ceiling.
I know, it looks like your computer is like, there's like this kind of gray texture thing,
No, that's what I see too. Well, I'll just try to figure that out between now and next week.
yeah,
okay?
I'm not really sure how to guide you on that.
I think maybe when you came on, and this is, hey, I'm a novice, but
Yeah.
when you come on, it asks, do you want to allow a video? And
Right.
then you want to watch, do you want to allow audio? So maybe you allowed audio and not video.
No, I allowed video. I don't remember it asking about audio.
Oh, okay. Well, we can hear
But
you, but we can't see you. So that was just an idea.
I'll try to make it so you can see me next week. I'll try to figure that out.
Yeah, well, we're just glad that you're here and that you can,
Yeah, thank you very
One
much.
thing to try is I know there's some people whose computers don't actually have a camera. So
Oh.
Zoom doesn't necessarily know that when you say you want to join with the video. So see if you have a camera, and then if you do, it might be blocked.
Oh. This is pretty old, my computer. It's probably about 8 years old.
it might not be, like I had an issue with my computer, even though it's only 4 years old, but the camera, Apple didn't update the camera to be compatible with the new Zoom app. I have to go through this whole system every day to get
Ooh.
my Zoom camera to work.
Oh.
And my computer's only 4 years old, so
So it could be something like that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you guys go ahead and I'll see if I can get this organized better for next week. When I can.
okay.
Thank
So,
you.
let's see, Ivy sent me her painting today. So we'll start with that. Is that okay with you, Ivy?
Sure,
We
sure.
can start with yours. Let me just get rid of these so we don't have to see my email. Okay. So here's Ivy's bird painting. So she did, are they all hummingbirds?
No, they're actually 3 different kinds of birds. The top one's a hummingbird. The bottom little guy is called a toady, but he's quite small, like a hummingbird. And then the orange bird is a rufous mott-mott.
Okay.
So I have a lot of bird books at home, so I had a lot of choices.
Fantastic. So this is I think this is a very successful painting. She's got a beautiful triangle going on here. And there's a real, like, this bird's looking at this bird, this bird's looking at this bird's, you know, engaged in the flower. So there's a lot of kind of dynamic action happening here. And then look at these interesting shapes that she's created. The negative space with the branches, breaking up the composition here. This is really great. All this action, it's very dynamic. And then there's excellent contrast between this very light, air-filled, textury background where she has a lot of wet on wet layering, kind of like a little bit of what I just did back here. Very ethereal. And then more dense pigment in the objects in the foreground. So the flowers and the birds really have kind of a pretty strong presence. And look at these beautiful colors in this. This is gorgeous.
He's my favorite.
What's that?
He's my favorite.
He's beautiful. Look at all her subtleties of the golden down to the cadmium red medium, down to the deep and the alizarin down here. This is just exquisitely done. And then she's got the stroke. You can really, you know, the strokes of the feather. She's done a nice job with the feet wrapping around. Look at the feet wrapping around the branches. Nice texture on the emerald hummingbird here. So, and she left the little white of the eyes. So you did everything right, Ivy. You followed all the directions. Good job.
I'm an obedient person. I'm very obedient. If you tell me, you know, we need it dark on the bottom, dark. I mean, I'm trying to do it. But
You really have. It shows that you really took in the lesson and really paid attention and applied, you know, you really listened well.
When I sent this, you know, I was happy with this, and you know, sometimes you're just not that happy with it, but I was happy with this. But this Rufus Mott-Mott has he's got this orange front, but he has green wings with a blue tip.
Yeah, you got that right here, this detail.
And when I'm far away from this, though, he looks just like a skinnier bird that almost disappears. And I don't know if I should just leave it that way or try and do something to make that pop. So,
I would leave it. I saw this right away as part of the
okay.
art.
Okay.
And it's because you brought this green into here.
Right.
You know? No, I totally see that's part of the wing.
Okay.
And
okay.
look at this nice rich black, her contrast, you know. Look at the value range in this painting from these really dark darks to the really light lights. It's really great.
This was my first success with making my own black.
Good job.
My black has always been purple. you know, like a deep, deep purple on my other stuff. And, you know, I said, I don't want this guy to be purple. And I don't really know what I did, but I just kept going. And this turned into black, actually. And so I was pleased that.
Good job.
Add everything, I guess.
Excellent. Well, your hard work is paying off.
Well, thanks. No, I like this one.
I think you're the only one who sent me an image for this class today. So, okay, who else has a painting to share? Dolly? Great. Can you unmute yourself?
Okay. I'm not finished with it, but there it is.
Okay, I'm gonna pin you so I can, oh, look at this. This is so fun. It looks, oh gosh, who's that artist? Oh, who am I thinking of? Is it Gauguin? Am I thinking of Gauguin? Who did the animals in the jungle? This is just really, I think this is fantastic.
I didn't know if I needed to do something more on the top with the white to add it more to the forest, like the darker.
I kind of like the graphic quality of just leaving that white and having that, you know, then it's like this whole thing is just like one big shape. It makes it more graphic. And look at this snake down here. I mean, this is really telling a story. Look at how he's hidden behind this red plant. And then we've got like this whimsical light butter, like there's this kind of dark, heavy thing happening, and then this light, playful area over here. I think it's just a fantastic painting, Dolly.
Should I leave the white as it is?
I mean, well, let's get feedback from the others. My vote is to leave the white. I kind of like like I said, I like the graphic quality of the white. And look at these shapes. I mean,
How do you make it bigger? How do I see the picture bigger?
you go to her little box, and there's a blue square with 3 dots, and if you click on that, there's a drop down box, and you want to click on the pin video or pin whatever. If you do that, whoever's talking, I know because I'm talking so much, I'm probably coming up. No matter who's talking, she'll stay in the big picture.
Got it.
I love this.
Thank you.
I would not change a thing.
Okay.
Do you guys think, would you rather see a color in the white or?
No, I don't.
Well, sometimes the background takes away, I think.
Yeah, I like the airy, like there's all this heavy stuff happening on the bottom. It's kind of a relief to have that light, spacious air at the top.
I like the white on the top.
Yeah, me too.
I think you did a
It's
fantastic
subtle,
job
but it's
on it.
there, and it's a little bit of contrast without being too stark.
Right.
Yeah, it's not too stark because there's not too much of it. It's broken up pretty well with all that leaves.
Okay. Thank you.
Good job. Wow, I'm impressed.
Okay. I'm starting this one. This is totally out of the picture of what we're doing, but I kind of like this. It's butterflies and it's a woman.
Okay. Ooh. Very it looks like Aphrodite. Oh, where'd you go? You went away. Oh.
So this is what I'm working on right now.
Very pretty. I love you're getting into the fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking good. Just keep going with it, Dolly. I love
Thank you.
I love the concept. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, anybody else?
Larissa?
Yeah.
Larissa, I would like to share something. I have it on my screen and I want to know how to share it.
Okay, so do you see the share screen button, the green?
Yes.
If you click on that, it will show your devices. So you select the device that your image is on. Are you going with Okay, you got it. So now just find your image on your computer.
Oh,
Okay.
Awesome.
So, oh, now I lost my, anyway,
Yeah,
this is actually funny because I started this flower painting of the camellias and
oh, this is the one I told you to go ahead and keep working on.
yes, so
And you did.
it's just fun. I know it's nothing that will ever be framed, but it's helping me just to do it. And there's some things I like about it. Obviously, there's things like there needs to be more dark, I think, in the leaves. But
I think it's a fun painting. I really like the looseness of this. I love those pink petals kind of that were your test areas. Now they've become petals falling down from the vase.
yeah,
And how the flowers are kind of free, like they're kind of falling out of the vase, onto the white. It's
and I did
very
that very
abstract.
quickly.
I think it's a successful painting.
And then I have this one. I just wanted to say because of practice, not that I like it, but there was certain things like this here that I like.
Yeah.
Just learning to work with watercolor.
Good. Yeah, this is a fun painting. Awesome. Thank you.
So thanks for looking at it.
Sure. I'm going to stop your sharing. Fantastic. You guys are really being brave in your painting. I love it. Does anybody else have anything to share?
Chris, I have something to share, but I'm embarrassed because I don't draw very well.
Oh,
and
don't be. We're all in this together.
I'm not very adventuresome, but I'm having so much fun.
Oh,
it looks like you are. It's really pretty, Sarah.
Well, it lacks in, I was trying to do the petal lesson that you gave us, but they were sweet peas and they all overlapped one another. So I couldn't figure out what was the alternate petal, what was the inside or.
I know,
so
it can get really confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it works. Again,
this green leaf, I don't like at all, but I can't scrape it out. So what?
So what don't you like about that green?
I think this is too green. It looks almost fake to me, but.
Well, what you could do, I mean, you can't really make it lighter, but maybe you could either tone it down, but you could put a layer of that violet on top of it, especially the blue violet.
Okay.
It's kind of a light, a light coating of the blue violet, and it will tone it down and kind of help integrate it, and it will push it back.
Okay. That'd be good.
That's what I would do. But I think the complexity of your flowers is really interesting. And even though it was confusing to kind of discern the different qualities of the sweet peas, it still reads as, it still reads as like sweet peas.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I really like it.
Yeah, it's a good one. You guys are doing great. Okay, who else?
Ed has one he wants to show.
Cool. All right. What have you been up to, Ed?
All right. He's hiding, but I'm gonna show
Oh,
him.
look at that. Oh, that's so cute. I've got to put this
Kind
up.
of cartoonish.
Oh, that's fun, though. That was the whole point of this. So you've got a raccoon and is that an owl?
Yeah, it's a baby
Oh,
owl.
fun.
it is
And then the stylized leaves of the branch. I'd almost like to see something hanging down from the upper corner above the raccoon, kind of in that corner up there.
spider or something.
I was kind of thinking about putting a moon in there would make it look like it's at night, but I'm not really sure how to do that yet.
The problem with that is that you have a lot of darks already. And I mean, I think what's making this painting is the starkness of the white background. And I'd almost like to see that. Somebody said a spider. I think that would be cute. It's almost, because it almost
Spider.
looks like,
Yeah,
it
that
almost
would
looks like they're afraid. Wouldn't it be funny if they were like afraid of a little spider coming down from the top right here? I
yeah, that might be cool.
think, who said that? Who suggested that?
Patricia.
Great idea, Patricia. I love that idea. I think something like that would be fun, but a third
That
little
would be-
thing up here.
Yeah.
It would help tell a story. It would help tell more of a story.
I like that idea.
I do too. Yeah, really good job with your darks and your brush strokes and capturing the personality of these animals.
Yeah, it was a fun one.
Yeah, it looks really fun. And I like how the color of the leaves picks up a little bit on the color in the owl's eyes and beak,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Cool. I'm glad you're doing the projects.
Thanks.
And then I have one that I did that has nothing to do with the assignment. But
That's okay. You know me.
I had no
I'm a
time.
rebel. I'm a rebel.
Yeah, this week was busy and I wanted to do this little flower painting. So I did this yesterday.
Oh, that's really pretty. So subtle.
And
The poppy.
yeah, it's poppies. And I was wondering what you guys thought about doing a background. Any suggestions? Or should I leave it white?
My first suggestion is to add some leaves.
Add some what?
Some leaves.
Oh, leaves. Okay.
Yeah. You know, coming up from the bottom, part with different levels.
Okay.
Let me get you. I'm sorry, I need to get you on pin so I can. I would start with the leaves and then maybe you could put a little bit of a washi soft blue or something in the background. Does anybody else have any suggestions? Does that sound like a good idea, Karen?
I think so. Yeah, I'd like to add a little bit more. It was just one I did quickly yesterday, so not much time. So I have time to add the leaves in, and I could do that.
You know, if the leaves don't, if that doesn't resonate with you, if you feel that the green, I mean, I don't know. In some ways, maybe that's all the green you need are these stems. I'm kind of rethinking my I don't want the greens to overwhelm the subtlety of the poppies.
Yeah.
You know what I think I would do? I would do a light blue wash kind of in the background, and it doesn't have to fill all the paper. You could just try wetting the paper like I did today, and drop in a little bit of sky blue and put that in all over, kind of all over, but it doesn't have to go up to all the edges. And then later on, if you feel like it still needs more, then you could add some green leaves on top of it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, why don't you start with just a subtle, soft sky blue wash in the background? Because it's so delicate, you know.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody else have any paintings to show? Okay, I guess that's it. So are we all good? Is everyone staying upbeat and positive in the spiritual quarantine time, the creative quarantine retreat? Is everyone doing okay with it?
Yes. Carissa, can I say something?
Yes.
Patricia, You know, on that spider, I visualize maybe, I don't know what value or how much of a leaf, but maybe a leaf, and with the spider making a little bit of his web, so he's dropping down from the leaf and coming somewhat close, you know, not real close, but somewhat close to one of the animal's heads. So that
Did
it's
Ed
sort of
hear that?
just an idea.
I love it. I love it. You should be a children's illustrator, director. You could direct the illustrators for children's stories. Okay, you guys. So for this week, you know, as always, you have the option to paint whatever you want. And so hopefully you can have a few things to draw on here. You can either continue working on or start a new animal painting or do more flowers. You could try playing around with a layered abstract, like I showed you today. And then we'll meet next week to wrap that up. And then for the last week, I'll be bringing you through the inner landscape painting for our last class. And then we have a week break before we start summer school classes. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording this now.